start with your childhood and what kind of upbringing you were raised in, and what traditional belief systems you moved out of when you started to become your own empowered woman.
So with my childhood, I feel super supported and very lucky with both my mother and my father. I have an older sister as well, and our parents always wanted us to find our niche, find something that we're very passionate about.
Yes.
And they allowed us a space to play within that. And for some reason, I really gravitated towards ice skating. And there was no one in my family that's ever done ice skating before. I was just extremely fascinated by it.
Yeah.
So I started taking classes casually, and then at a certain point, it just became very serious. I don't even know
what happened.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's just like competitively.
Yeah, the transition was just all of a sudden, I don't even remember it starting. I just remember it being very intense, but in a really good way. So when that happened, I was, I don't know, in 5th grade, and I would be waking up at 4 a.m. And yeah.
Oh, wow. In 5th grade?
Yeah.
Jeez.
And my parents would be taking me to the ice rink, and they'd be waking up with me, and I'd be doing my sessions before school.
Okay.
Be doing that Monday through Friday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
at a young age, too. It's just like, it's pretty incredible to hear. Especially at an age where usually we're developing, more of our creative abilities, our intuitive insights. We're trusting more of our intuition at a young age. And so to be kind of, thrown into this world that definitely I feel that there is, like you were saying, just that more serious competitive edge. I mean, it helps you to become who you are today, right? You're able to stand in what you learned during those times. It helps to develop, I feel, that sense of self-discipline at a very young age. But what, from your perspective, did you feel it helped to ignite within you when you went also into your teenage years?
I think it allowed me, I'm definitely a creature of habit, and I always have been. And I really love to set goals, and I like to see where I'm going and what steps that need to be taken for me to obtain that goal.
Yes.
So I think in my teenage years, of course, in my adolescence, I did stray, but for some reason, I always felt like I was able to kind of bring me back. I love structure, and I've always liked structure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, I can be very spontaneous and a wanderlust, and that's been who I am since I was a kid.
Wow.
So yeah, I think when I was a teenager, when I did realize I was straying away, it was almost intentional. Like I know I'm straying away just because I wanted to do it, but I knew I could get back on track if I wanted to.
Yes.
So it's almost like know the rules to break them.
Well, it's funny. I think that aspect too of just self-trust, right? Because I feel when you do go into a sport at a young age, and especially something as graceful and intentional as ice skating. I mean, personally, I haven't ice skated, but when I see the women and their beauty and their elegance, it inspires me as a female, but also just the movement. The movement is very precision, very elegance and grace. But also there's an element to it where you could potentially really hurt yourself. So there has to be a level of self-trust that comes through. So it feels like possibly at a young age too, that helped to develop that muscle of self-trust.
Yeah, and I also feel like when I was that age, I didn't even think about it like that. It was just what I wanted to do. And the sky was the limit for me. When we're young, we don't really set these limitations for ourselves. There's no boundary. I mean, I was practicing like I was going to go into the Olympics.
Wow. And it's just so amazing to hear at that age. It's incredible. It's incredible. Totally. Just like, I mean, to hear that someone, especially, that takes so much. It takes so much discipline and energy at that age to be able to just commit to that. And it really feels like have a passion for it, like love it, and stay committed.
Yeah, it didn't even feel like a commitment. I was just like, I loved. I would even have my tights on. I'd go to sleep with my tights.
Oh my gosh!
So I'd be able to
little
spare
ice skating
some time.
baby.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, and it was something that I really wanted to do, and I was super lucky that my parents were right behind me, supporting me in that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what they moved through probably as well for you to be able to, pursue those things that you love to do. What they went through, on their end to facilitate that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we become older, we realize how much impact that these little, events that we do as children help mold us into who we are today. It's like when I look at you, Nikki, I see so much of that, structure and discipline, but the elegance and the grace and the flow as well. So it just feels like that integrated a part of who you are. Which is it's really cool to see, because a lot of people, sometimes we go through these life events, and like you said, sometimes we stray, but I feel that really grounding element of who you are, that will never go away if you trust it and you hold on to it as your sense of foundation.
Yeah.
Like that will always be you. That will always be a part of you, no matter how far we may stray away. We can always turn back inward to trust that elements that you were given as a child, and also you chose to pursue.
Yeah, and you said flow, and I feel like flow really has been such a theme in my life.
Yeah.
Because even after ice skating, I became a dancer. After dancing, I was an avid yogi and turned into a yoga instructor. So there's definitely a theme of flow that's been very prevalent within my life. So it's funny that you say that.
Well, and I love, it's like, being a dancer too, the rhythm, right? There's a rhythm. And also with ice skating. I mean, the two encompass rhythm. And you were saying the flow. So when you trust your natural organic rhythm, which we all have our own, I feel rhythm of who we are, right? When we trust it, it's like anything, it's movement. And that's something that we use just in life. Do you go with the rhythm of life? Do you dance to your own beat? Do you allow yourself to dance to your own beat? Or do you, take on outside of you that doesn't fit, right? It doesn't fit. When you're trying to dance, so you're trying to be someone else while you're dancing, it doesn't feel right? It feels off. It feels unnatural, and we get frustrated. We go like this, or any type of choreography, say it is, and you take it on and you're just like, this maybe doesn't fit me. It's just not fitting. You start to realize wow, I can just trust my natural intuition, my natural rhythm of life. And that just, I feel like when you come from that background, because I as well, Nikki, was a competitive dancer. I was. Yeah, I was.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I was a competitive dancer at a young age. So I understand what happens when you become older, because that's been my foundation as well, is the discipline, the structure. And it really helped to mold me into who I am today because of that trust element. And when I get into any type of physical exercise, I get into a rhythm. I'll just trust my natural rhythm. I don't overthink it. I think that's really big. It's I don't overthink my rhythm. And if I do, then I start to feel uncomfortable in my body. I start to feel just just a little bit disconnected from who I am, just like you were saying, intentionally, just who you are. It's just intuitive. So I really resonate with what, your story has blossomed from. Not the full story as far as the ice skating. That's incredible. It's especially to be at the level that you were, little Olympian, the way you were training. It's incredible. But the dancer, I do understand. And then what goes into it, how it consumes your life in those ways. And you just make different sacrifices too, at a young age. So you already learn how to focus on what's important. Like you were saying, the goals. So that carries with you. It's an important part of life, is to be able to focus on what's important and keep your focus. When you start to stray, just naturally, gently, go back into what's important. which leads into what did yoga, it feels like it became a part of your just life practice. So how did you find yoga, and how did yoga find you? Let's say that.
Yeah. So that was such a big turning point in my life. I just, one day, I heard of hot yoga. I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's a newer concept. It was back in 2010, so it wasn't as big as it was now.
Okay,
yeah. So I went in.
It is so big now, too.
Yeah,
it's like But to hear it 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So I was like, okay, let me try this. It was a local studio. And after my first class, I was like, what is this? This is amazing. Hooked. Yeah, exactly. And I just kept going and going and going. And I started to build a community. And at that time, I was going to Saddleback, which is just a local junior college. A lot of my friends left for college at that point. So a lot of my time was dedicated to going to classes and meeting new friends at the studio, and you know, meeting these instructors that have been such a huge inspiration in my life. And then one day I come home, my mom's like, I signed you up for teacher training.
Oh, like, wow.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, just like out of the blue.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because she saw that spark that I had for ice skating and dance.
Yes.
She saw the same thing happen with yoga.
Wow.
And it was such a nice transition from being a dancer, and I'm sure you feel that too, going into yoga.
Yeah.
It's very fluid.
Yes.
So it just feels really good. It almost felt like I was home when I was doing yoga.
Wow.
And it also kind of took away the competitiveness.
Yes.
Which was so nice.
Yes, it's, you know, I found with dance, there were so many elements that I loved to dance, but I did not love what came with it. It's like you were saying, the competitiveness, also certain comparisons, you know, weight goals, things that were just not at an age where you're developing as a human being.
Very meditative, and it was very intuitive, and the whole point was to not compete with your neighbor. Come as you are, and just, if you can't do a forehand stand or whatever it is, you can't do crow, then that's okay. Like go in Shavasana if you want. I just loved that freedom. And the fact that it was just a practice. It's an evergreen practice, and that put a lot of pressure off of me.
Definitely.
That sometimes dance put on me. And yeah, I just think with yoga, it just really gave me a different perspective as far as movement goes, because movement has always been my vessel. It's been my way of showing who I am, creative, in an expressive way, in a creative way. That's my outlet. But the approach was different with yoga, which is why it was really a turning point for me.
And what did, after you made that decision to pursue forward with the teacher training of yoga, with your mom, coming so graciously to help invest into you, what did you find after you decided to really take this as your next step? What did the universe bring you? What came through?
Well, I think the group that I did it with, and my mentors. I feel super lucky for who was there with me as a community. Because there was a ton of breakthroughs for everyone and me. And, this is where I was introduced to eye gazing and the, yamas and niyamas and the yogic history and Ayurveda, all of that. Beautiful. Yeah, and this was a whole world that was untouched for me, and I just wanted more. I was so fascinated by it all.
Wow.
And I was never a religious person growing up. My parents gave me the freedom to just be a good person, and whatever leads your way, follow that path. So religion has never been a big part of my life, but yoga and my teacher training really brought in a sense of spirituality for me, which was beautiful. And, I've never really had that before. For me, it was just common sense. Like, just be a good person.
Just like natural.
Yeah.
It's just like the intention of who you are, just emitting out to others. And feeling that security within yourself. of making that transition and out of those outdated belief systems and maybe judgments that came with, leaving that world of dance and letting go of the perception of who you were into the perception of who you are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it evolved me in a very different way, and it really caught me off guard. But to this day, I'm still so lucky I had that experience, because it's the starting point of everything.
It's the roots.
That I've done. Yeah.
It's the roots.
Yeah, it really is. Yes.
Like the lotus. When you were speaking, Nikki, it was like, I feel that it was a very grounding experience, literally into your physical body, like with a different approach, as you were saying earlier, and having a different intention that also carries now into, I feel like, your practices of, being, of course, a yoga teacher and also facilitating breath work and sound healing, giving people an immersive experience inside of their bodies. Because I think that as humans, we crave to be in our bodies, but sometimes we don't know how. And I feel that we see it as like an illusion. Like when we see someone happy, is around, and we can feel their energy, right? We feel that they're happy. We feel that they're in love with themselves. We can feel it. Like we just know there's something different. And when we're really awakening into who we are, we just start recognizing it even more so in people. And I think it's an absolutely incredible thing when you start to just kind of deprogram old views of yourself, and then you reprogram just who you want to be and who, for going forward, and bringing that energy with your clients too, facilitating. Because we have to know, like you were saying earlier, we have to have rules to break rules, like, right? Like it's a part of it. It's the yin and yang. And we were talking earlier, before we even started filming, of how, and I loved how she said it, because it's really more the traditional, is yin and yang. That was what you said. And so it really is truly the light and dark aspects of life that we have to allow ourselves to go through and experience. There's no like easy shortcut to where we want to go, but when we have the ability to trust, as we were talking about earlier, all of our experiences of who what made us into who we are today, that starts to make life easier, that it was all for a purpose. There's not one thing in our lives that didn't serve to some need that we're going to bring forward going forward. And so for some reason, I feel that this aspect of yourself has been really, big from the yoga and coming into that awareness, within you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm so appreciative of it. I don't know where I would have been if I didn't have my yoga teacher training.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, seriously.
Thanks, Mom's energy. She would have, it's interesting how those little things make such huge impacts in our lives. True forms of guidance, people in our lives. And that was leading into, so Nikki, you also are such a big, it feels like, advocate of the breath. And, and it was, we were saying, connecting to your body and your mind, your soul, but a lot of it just being in your body with the breath work. So what was also the addition when you decided after, teacher training, and you wanted to know more and you wanted to just expand already what you have learned? What was the, initial decision to then pursue breath work?
Yeah. So since my yoga teacher training, I was 19, I'm 28 now. So since then I've been teaching yoga and personal training. I was a bar instructor. I mean, I was very, very in my body, teaching other people how to use their body. But meditation and the internal world was kind of forgotten for me. Or it just wasn't something that I ever really thought about. So at a certain point, I felt like I really knew the body. Like, you want to lose 15 pounds and get super ripped? Okay, well, boom, boom, boom. This is what you do.
This is where the goal orientation kicks in. The goal is setting the goals.
Totally. So I could tell someone, yeah, sure, here you go. Follow this plan, and that will happen for you. But then at a certain point, I kind of felt like something was missing. And I kind of felt like you could go to the gym and then work out and feel really good about yourself. And the next day, some things happen and you might get busy and you don't make the gym and you just get really down on yourself. It's such a high and a low that people go through.
So true.
And people get really hard on themselves until you go back and you work out again. You're like, okay, like pat on the shoulder, you know, you're good for the day.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt, I saw that in my clients and then I saw that in me. So I had to take a step back and just ask myself, what's missing here? And it was my mind. It was my internal world. And I wasn't paying attention to it at all. I was really focusing on the exterior, which serves a purpose.
Of course, yeah.
But also it's all kinetic and it all comes together and you really have to tend to your internal world for everything to kind of flow easier. And
that's true.
Just let it be fluid, So I made a pact to myself last year.
Little pact.
Yeah. It's that little pact.
Yes. Those make such big differences. You know, when we truly stick to it too.
Absolutely.
Like commit to ourselves.
Yes, exactly. So it started with me first, and it's a newer practice, this meditation practice. I started last year, and I told myself 10 minutes every single day.
Yes.
Just sit down, meditate right when you wake up. I don't even have to sit down. I can just wake up, be in bed, and then meditate for 10 minutes, and then move on with my day. I've tried to make it as easy as possible.
Yes, which I think is really big for the listener, because we do have a tendency to overthink how we need to do it, what it needs to look like, how we need to get there, especially with meditation for so many people. So hearing that it can be that simple of, hey, you wake up in the morning and you just instantly allow yourself to connect. Like, hey, I can just lay in bed and listen, you know, if there's even the app, YouTube, whatever it is, make it very simple, you know?
Yeah.
And I bet Nikki also has some meditations that you are able to give people as well.
Yeah.
So you can listen to Nikki in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was my whole thing. Make it really easy, make it be able to be digestible. And then I got really into my meditation practice and I found a local studio. And, you know, I was ready to find a community.
Yeah.
Because it was a really pivotal point in my life as well. So I stepped in the studio and the first class that I took was breathwork. And
the first one to be breathwork. It's like pretty, you know, it's a little bit more like intense as far as like being connected to in that way.
Yeah, and I honestly didn't know what to expect. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I just thought it was a different form of meditation, very passive, very just sit there and observe and you're going to be good to go.
It's very active, very active, you know.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, I'm curious. Let's see. Mind you, I walked into this class just like I was really happy. I was fine. Like everything was great.
Yeah, there was no expectation. There was no different, you know, state of mind.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, not even halfway through the class, I am bawling. I just had this emotional reaction. I was like,
it hit the energy.
Where is this coming from? And it was just a completely somatic experience that I've never felt before. And knowing that I had that power just through the breath, it rocked my world. I didn't realize that was there until it was ignited. And
I love that. It's so true.
And then I was just like, I need to know more. Like, what just happened? And that really was, it set me off in my whole breathwork journey. And I really realized that meditation serves a place, absolutely. But it is a passive practice. You sit and you let your thoughts observe. Breath work is so voluntary. You are there. It's so active, and you can't not think about it. You're doing it. It's just like yoga. It's very. It takes over. And for me personally, I feel like breath work is the first step before meditation. It's easier to drop in with breath work, because you are using every single part of your body internally and externally,
yes,
where you're able to drop in a lot faster. And then once you're able to get a handle on that, your body is ready to sit in meditation and be a little bit more passive and observant. So that's why whenever people say it's so hard for me to meditate, I say, okay, do breath work first. That's the first step. That's how I see it.
Well, I love that, because it is, you know, as a practitioner, I personally love breath work as well. I see that it's very similar, as you were speaking, that and what your experiences, I love to hear your first experience, because usually your first experience with breath work, it's amazing how you don't understand maybe fully what's going on in the moment, and then you're allowing yourself to hit those energy, you know, literally the breath is hitting then on that energy center to release. And it can be right after or midway, as you were speaking about, that you feel it, and then it's just like, okay, allowing yourself that space, and it's just like a rush. I mean, that's the beautiful thing of breath work. It will, as you're saying, very active, and I do agree with being more passive after, because you get so many, I feel, more benefits from your meditation too. I mean, you've moved so many things, and like you were saying, you get to observe it. So I love your viewpoint on breath work, because I would recommend as well for people that being first, just because it helps you to get into your body, and then meditation comes more naturally. And it actually feels really good after you've done all that, you know, work. It feels really good to sit with it, and allow yourself to see what comes through. And since your energy centers are clear and filtrating, it's a beautiful digestion of what just came through. So I really love how you said the observant after. And you also have encompassed the sound healing. Now, what was it for you that really ignited that aspect to get into sound healing? So, you know, it was more just, I thought it was so fascinating and so beautiful. And, you know, when I first saw the instruments that they were using within sound healing, I've never seen them before. And it just really sparked this curiosity in me. Like, I want to know more. Yes, this is like little Nikki since she was a child. You know, the ice skater in you, the one who wants to push and get, you know, move past certain limits. And
I lead with a curiosity, because obviously it's there. It's this spark. It's like, oh, okay, maybe I'll tend to that spark and see where it takes me. And usually it takes you excel, right? Like when you do something, you then excel. Like that's your natural, it feels like innate ability. You know, it's just when you do something, you really then go with it and flow, as you were speaking about. Exactly. So with sound healing, it was more just so I can get a different perspective on this world, in this world. Like I said, you know, I've been studying the body for almost a decade now, but your internal world is a lot different. And sound healing for me, what blew my mind is that it changes your DNA. And what I learned through it is that there's certain noise and certain frequencies that actually negatively affect you. A lot of static, a lot of stuff that we listen to on the radio, it's actually detrimental to our energy, and we don't even know it. So we actually have to be really careful about the things that we decide to listen to. There's a reason why they call it healing music and music medicine, because it really is. Something that stuck with me for so long is that nature has a certain frequency, and it's so low that you can't get it anywhere else, and you can't avoid it. Anytime anyone goes into nature, you just automatically feel at peace, and we wonder why. It's because of the sounds that Mother Earth provides for us.
It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful because it's so true. We forget, right? We forget. And as you were speaking about, I love how you said, you know, it's singing, it has its own frequency. You know, everything in the universe is singing. And to hear, though, that, I mean, really what we consume and what we choose, as you were saying, to listen to it does have a direct effect. I mean, it hurt just emotionally too. We can usually become a little bit more reactive to certain frequencies, like it makes us more tense. But I love how you said the DNA activation. So what have you found, Nikki, through doing personal sound healing? If you have your own bowls at home, what do you feel when you connect? When you connect to your instruments.
So my sound healing is something that I hold more personal to myself. It's not something that I've done with my clients yet, because it is a work in progress for me.
Like everything.
Yeah. So for me, it's playtime. Like when I do that, when I get into my instruments, it's very experimental. Sometimes it sounds great, sometimes it doesn't.
It's not about,
So because it is so fresh for me as far as sound healing goes, it really taps into that child's like mentality, which I think is so important. To be new to something, I think as adults, it's something that we need to continue. It's a practice, because we like to stay in our comfort zone. So
Totally.
I'm not gonna sit here and say that I've mastered sound healing at all, because it's still something that I'm working on.
Yes.
But it's part of my own personal growth right now, which is it's just super fun for me, and it plays into my curious side that seems to keep peeking through in my life. So it's something that I'm honing into slowly but surely, but it definitely, it's fun.
Yes, we will, stay tuned when Nikki's, next interview. It'll be, Nikki's been really rocking it with her sound healing too. Yeah.
In due time.
In due time. Well, it always unfolds naturally, as you know.
Yeah.
It's nothing to, and I really love how you said it's more of your playtime, because that's how I personally feel with sound healing as well. It's like, that's my time to just have fun, be curious, not overthink, and just relax into the bowls. And whatever sound comes through, it's for a purpose, and being okay with it. So it teaches you so much about life. Like, I remember when I first got them, I was like, rubbing so hard, just like, because I didn't know what I was doing. And I was like realizing this thing, because I could feel its vibration. It goes, it might shatter, We got to maintain, we got to keep a sense of control here. Go slower, because that was interesting. I mean, it's like where we're at in our lives. That's why I was asking, just when you connect, it's always different where we're at with ourselves. I can speak for myself. It was like I was trying to control the frequency, just being so fast. And I noticed it's helped me personally connect more with, okay, just slow down. And it's okay to go slow. Like it's okay to, not have to, it doesn't mean it's going to be louder. It doesn't mean it's going to be, actually that means that it could potentially break, right? And that's kind of like, I feel like life.
Yeah, and it's such an amazing merge and symbol of that. And sometimes it's okay to not know, and sometimes it's okay to be new to something and be comfortable in that. We don't have to be good at everything. We don't have to rush into things. To your point, it's okay to take a step back, go a little bit slower, and just see where that takes you. That really does resonate. Yeah.
Well, and you were just from Nikki's social media, which you guys will have to go check her out, because it's an incredible page filled with so much beauty in all forms. I think that's what I love. You get to see her design aesthetic too, which I love seeing, just your design, the way that you choose, what calls to your soul. I love that. And, of course, just information regarding meditation and breath work and following Nikki, so that you guys can also integrate what she's, learning too. You guys are all learning together and being along for the ride and journey, with Nikki. But I saw that you had just been to Sedona. Yeah. So what do you find, and you were talking about nature, you were talking about the frequencies of what Mother Earth, just emits naturally. It's just literally, it's just the way it is. What did you find when you were in Sedona this last weekend? Was there anything that really stuck out to you while hiking or while you were out there. I mean, it's a magical place, but
have you been?
Like, oh, I love Sedona. I go to Sedona, like, when I need to reset, I go to Sedona.
Yeah, and I see why. I've never been there before. It's my first time.
Oh, it's your first time?
Yeah.
It's last weekend?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's like, that's a blessing. Sedona is magical.
It's
magical. Yeah.
I mean, of course, the vortex and the energy that it holds, but the people that are there too.
Yes.
And it definitely attracts a certain person. Everyone is very heart-centered, and they're so open.
It's so true. There you go. It's so true. When you're hiking too, you know, you meet so many people.
It's amazing. My friends and I, we were doing a little creek dip, and I saw this older man, but in incredible shape, and he was hanging out in this creek for 30 minutes, and me and my friend were like, oh, it's so cold. But we finally got in there.
Yeah.
And, you know...
He's a little champ. He's already, you know...
Yeah, but we got to talking with him, and turns out he's a professor, and he works with mental health, and breathwork is a huge part of his synchronicity. Practice. Oh my gosh. And
oh my gosh.
We just, you know, and it seems very common for people like that to be there, you know? But, you know, to answer your question, it was just such an example of just being present. And that's something that's really been coming through for me this year, is just accept it for what it is. And what can you do to learn from that? In any situation, whether it's good, whether it's bad. And, you know, I was stargazing. My friends and I, we were stargazing for
the stars are so beautiful there too.
And
they're so beautiful.
So beautiful, but there's things in the sky that I've never seen before, and it's almost like we don't even give ourselves the time to sit down and just look at the sky.
It's so true.
I mean, granted, we're in California, so we don't see the stars that they have in Sedona.
But still, it's taking that, like you were saying, just being present and giving yourself the permission slip that it's okay to be present and in the moment, and accepting the moment for what it is, not wanting to change it, not wanting to overthink, not wanting to control, and just letting go. And like you said, whatever comes through for you, it is a part of your lessons. So observing it with a viewpoint of, no matter what comes through, I trust it's for my best and highest good. Even if it is something I'm not, you know, it's not the most fun. It's a little sucky. You know, like it's a little sucky. But it's going to be a part of my growth. It's okay. Like I'll get through this. And just having that awareness, like you were speaking about, it does help to make it that much easier and less, you know, what the mind wants to create of like overwhelming and that you're not going to get through it. And, you know, all the fear, it just comes through. And you start realizing that, wait, I have a choice. I have a choice how I view this. So it's like what you were saying of going outside and choosing to look at the stars. Right? Well, you're looking at the stars in even a different place. Of course, it's a different environment, but giving yourself that permission slip to be present and not feel the need to be anywhere else. It really does teach you so many lessons about life.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. And that was one thing. And another thing that I took away from that was being okay with being a little lost.
Oh, yeah. Oh, isn't it funny? Sedona, I love that this was your first, you know, your first time, because this is absolutely incredible to hear, you know, for the listener too, who's never been to Sedona. Sedona will teach you, you know, it teaches you so many lessons while you're there. The land, you know, it's like we're anywhere you go, but there's something very special about Sedona.